what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy
the LSU football team back on the practice field today, and we're going to get a boots-on-the-ground report right now from Zack Nagy of LSU Country and Sports Illustrated. Zach, what's going on?
Good morning, man. How we doing?
We are doing good. Okay, so you were just out there this morning, right? Give me your biggest takeaways from today's practice. What kind of stood out to you?
Yes, there's not much I can say from today's practice just because we got to wait until practice officially ends at 9:40.
Yeah.
But look, man, this spring football has been rolling right now, and the main takeaway for a lot of us in the media right now is what's going to happen with this, QB2 battle. Is it going to be Ricky Collins? Is it going to be AJ Swan? So they've kind of been flip-flopping between QB2 and QB3 over the last couple of weeks, and it's definitely one that gained a lot of interest from a lot of people, at practices. So Ricky Collins, obviously the redshirt freshman who has a lot of the know from the playbook, a great relationship with Joe Sloan. And then you got Vanderbilt transfer AJ Swan, who's coming into the mix as well in a big way. So that's a big standout from the last couple of weeks. And certainly the wide receiver room, you have an embarrassment of riches right there. So, whoever's going to fill up that third spot alongside Chris Hilton and Kyron Lacey is going to be really what steals the show over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I know you guys haven't got to see a ton of, team, if you will, but you've been out there pretty much every day of practice. Who do you kind of think has the edge right now between Swan and Collins?
It's such an interesting dynamic between the two because they're such polar opposite signal callers. You have AJ Swan, who's a true pocket passer, and he's really assertive out there right now. And then you have Ricky Collins, who's more of a Jaden Daniels type of guy, just in the way that he's a super dynamic quarterback. He's raw right now. He's got a lot of things that he has to work on. For me, I'd probably just say Ricky Collins at the exact moment, just because he has familiarity with the program. But again, you have 2 more weeks of spring ball. You'll go into summer workouts, and then you have fall camp. So that QB2 battle is going to be one to keep eyes on over the next couple of months for sure.
Switching from QB2 to QB1. Look, Garrett Nussmeier is a guy who has been in this program for quite some time, but this is his first spring entering practice knowing that he's going to be the guy, that he is the starting quarterback. What have you kind of seen from Nuss out there on the practice field?
Garrett Nussmeier looks absolutely assertive. He looks calm, cool, and collected at all times. He's been a leader. He's been extremely vocal throughout practices. And we had the opportunity to talk to him last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, and everything that he said just sounds so, cut and dry. He's finally got his time. He doesn't have as much to worry about. There's familiarity, comfortability within the program. I'm really high on Garrett Nussmeier, and I think a lot of people are too. So it's going to be an exciting, again, I've said the words next couple of months because you're really not going to understand the true feel of this program until fall camp in August. But I'm really high on Garrett Nussmeier because he just has such an embarrassment of riches to work with on the outside at wide receiver. There's the entire offensive line coming back. I truly feel comfortable with the situation Nussmeier's coming into, and you can tell that he's very, very confident in what he's doing right now in Baton Rouge.
Zach, you kind of brought me right into my next question. You were talking about the embarrassment of riches he has out there on the outside. Let's kind of get into that receiver rotation. I mean, all the talk has been Kyron Lacey and Chris Hilton. I mean, those are the two veteran guys in the room. We know about them. But outside of those two guys, who's a few players that have kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, right now, honestly, you have Kyron Lacey and Chris Hilton who have asserted themselves as true starters for this program. And then you go look at somebody who could fill in that third starting wide receiver slot. And it's a various amount of guys. You really have Kyle Parker, the redshirt freshman, who's really, really had a phenomenal offseason. I've been very impressed with what Kyle Parker's brought to the table, as well as Aaron Anderson, the Alabama transfer who had one season in Baton Rouge just now, and as well as Liberty transfer, C.J. Daniels, Mississippi State transfer, Xavion Thomas. You really have 5, 6, 7 guys who could come in and start for this program right now. So wide receivers coach Cortez Hankton has a ton of guys who can step in and make an impact. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on Kyron Lacey and Chris Hilton right now, just because the two are veterans, like you said, and just a pair of guys who have really, really made noise. But look, man, there's so many guys that can step in and make an impact. I'm excited to see what C.J. Daniels can do. He was a 1,000-yard receiver last year at Liberty. Now he's coming to Baton Rouge, and that's an opportunity to really showcase his skill set in SEC settings. So I'm really intrigued with what he can provide for this program. But if you were asking me who I have true eyes on right now, it's C.J. Daniels and Kyle Parker to see who's going to take over that third wide receiver starting slot.
Yeah, and something else that's going to help Garrett Nussmeier, it's that really good offensive line up front. I mean, you returned 4 out of 5 starters from a year ago, but the guy that everyone's kind of had their spotlight on in spring practice for the obvious reason is DJ Chester because he's kind of the new piece out there. What have you seen from him at center?
I love what DJ Chester brings to this program. He's such an intelligent player, and honestly, you look at the center position, and that's the quarterback of the offensive line. He has to be assertive. He has to be willing to voice what he can. And being a youngster in the program, he plays like a savvy vet. This is a guy who fits into the rotation extremely well, alongside guys like Emory Jones, Will Campbell, Garrett Dellinger, Miles Frazier. He really fits in, and there hasn't been much hiccup at that position group. And Brad Davis is just a complete mastermind with the offensive line. So he believes in DJ Chester. The entire offensive line believes in DJ Chester, and he believes in himself. We had the opportunity to talk to him last week, talk about a calm, cool, collected guy. I truly believe that DJ Chester is going to step into the mix and be a really impressive center for this program next fall.
Zack Nagy with LSU Country and Sports Illustrated joining us right now. Zach, want to switch from offense to defense right now if we can. LSU brings in Blake Baker, the new defensive coordinator. What has been kind of the vibes on that side of the ball under Blake Baker?
It's the whole new regime. It's really impressive seeing what Blake Baker can do. You know, he's out there with cleats on. He's putting his boots on the ground. He's doing what he can. He's cutting. He's diving. He's a really vocal, eccentric guy when it comes to a defensive coordinator. He's young in the game, and he shows it just in the way that he coaches. He's truly, I guess you could say, just a new era coach. And I've been really impressed with what he's providing this defense. He's super intense, and you can tell that he's working alongside Harold Perkins and that linebacker group very, very closely, because that's going to be what ultimately separates this program this season. So, you know, Harold Perkins back at the inside linebacker position, and like I was saying, Blake Baker's working alongside him very, very closely. I've been nothing short of impressed with what Blake Baker's done, and I'm really excited to see what happens with him, you know, going into next fall.
As far as the defense goes, I mean, the DB rotation, it was a room that struggled mightily last year. You got some guys returning. You got some transfers coming in. I mean, any standouts in that room or players you would like to see step up?
Look, at the cornerback rotation, you have Ashton Sampson, Javian Toviano handling first-team cornerback duties. And those are two guys who got extreme snaps as true freshmen last season. So now you get, you know, a full off-season under your belt, taking first-team snaps. I'm really impressed with what those two have provided this defense so far. Obviously, it's a small sample size with spring right now, and we've gotten around 5 to 6 media availabilities, but I've been extremely impressed with what those two guys have provided this program. And then switching gears to the safety position, true freshman Deshaun McBride is somebody that I think everybody needs to keep tabs on right now. This is a player that a lot of people within the program are high on, and he's really shined. He's been taking second-team snaps right now at safety, but I wouldn't be surprised if this guy doesn't step on. I'd be really shocked, let's just say this, if he doesn't take impactful snaps this fall in Death Valley. I've been extremely impressed with Deshaun McBride, and that's with his physicality, his length. He has all of the intangibles, and he's an extremely smart football player. So if I'm looking at somebody in the defensive backfield that I really want to see make an impact this season, it's going to be Deshaun McBride. And everybody's seen the talk of the town with Sage Ryan. He's been a player that shined through spring ball. Last Saturday or the Saturday before that, he had 3 interceptions in one practice. So I'm looking at Sage Ryan to take that next step this season. And then a player that I really want to see get some significant playing time is going to be Deshaun McBride, the true freshman safety.
You know, we're talking about the DB room right now, and, you know, something that Brian Kelly mentioned in his latest media availability that kind of took people, you know, that may not be out of practice, kind of intrigued him a little bit, was Major Burns playing at that star position, which is a new role in Blake Baker's defense. What can you tell me about what you've seen from him?
The star position is definitely a new thing going on with Blake Baker's defense, and Major Burns has a sense of comfortability in that spot. He can drop down into the box and be extremely impactful around the linebacker position. He can drop back in the defensive backfield and be impactful there. I think this is where Major Burns is going to get his bread and butter. I've been extremely impressed with what he's been doing throughout spring camp right now, and talking with some guys around the program, I truly think that Major Burns could take that next step this offseason. Obviously, he's a savvy veteran, and I've said that about a couple of guys, but I truly believe that Major Burns is going to be a guy that fits in he fits like a glove into Blake Baker's system, and I truly think that at the star position, this is where we can see him kind of take that next step as a player. I know a lot of people have critiqued Major Burns over the last couple of years, but I really think the star spot could be exactly what we've been waiting for Major, and I really think that this could be where he, like I said a couple seconds ago, takes that next step.
All right, just 2 more for you, Zach, and these are positions that you lack depth at during spring practice. First one I want to talk about is the defensive tackle spot. You've seen Kimo Macaniola move over. I mean, Jacobian Guillory's kind of the anchor in that group, right? I mean, he's the only guy that has a ton of experience, at least here at LSU, playing that spot. What have you seen from the defensive tackle rotation?
Jalen Lee and Jacobian Guillory have been taking first-team reps right now. As for the second and third-team reps, it's really hard to get a true gauge on that spot just because of the lack of depth in that position group. Defensive tackle is one that they're going to have to hit the transfer portal with force this spring. But what I've seen from Jalen Lee and Jacobian Guillory, I have been extremely impressed. Bo Davis is really a hands-on coach. He's insane. It's the best way to put it, man. He is truly a one-of-a-kind coach, and we've seen him just get in guys' faces, be extremely vocal, physical. He's a fantastic coach, and I think he's going to get the most out of his players. But it's hard for him to get the most out of his players right now because there's such a lack of depth. You don't want to fatigue your guys so early in the game. But sticking to the question that you asked, man, what I've seen from this position group is just guys trying to get into a groove. Jacobian Guillory, like you said, I couldn't have said it better. He's the anchor of that defensive tackle group, and I really want to see what he can do moving forward. Along the defensive line, true freshman Gabriel Relaford is a guy that within this program, a lot of people think that he's going to be impactful, whether it's in year one or year two. He's going to be a guy who touches the field as a youngster. I'm going to be really excited to see what he develops into. But Jacobian Guillory and Jalen Lee are your two guys right now, and moving forward, the transfer portal is going to be their best friend.
And lastly, I want to shift back over to the offensive side. Two guys that have gotten a ton of reps in spring practice because of the lack of depth is Josh Williams, a savvy vet, and then Caleb Jackson, who was not here last year in spring practice. So this is actually his first full spring with the Tigers, and he's kind of the guy everybody's keeping their eye on. What have you seen from Caleb Jackson?
It's a fun dynamic between the two just because it's your only two scholarship backs on the roster right now. What I've seen from Caleb Jackson is a guy who's extremely calm. He's extremely comfortable again. And I know I've used those words quite a few times, familiarity, comfortability. And that's because you have a lot of returning guys on the offense right now. And I think Caleb Jackson is going to come into his own this season again. Last season, it was sporadic when he got on the field. It wasn't necessarily, I guess the proper word would be reps over and over and over again. He was kind of thrown into the fire a couple of times. So now he's back getting his first full spring under his belt. I've seen a lot of impressive things from him, and that comes from physicality. His body's built up. He's put on even more size. And this is a guy whose lower body is extremely impressive. So I've been really impressed with what Caleb Jackson brings to this program. And him and Josh Williams, it's an interesting dynamic because you have the youngster, and then again, you have a veteran in the locker room. So I've been extremely impressed with what Caleb Jackson's done. Him and Josh Williams have split first-team reps over these first few weeks of practice. And I'm really excited to see what he can provide this program moving forward.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.